north of Capitol Drive, but south of Capitol Drive. It made a lot of sense. There were some members, some residents that live south of Capitol Drive in attendance. In the packet of emails that that come to staff that we got over the weekend, there were several folks that were south of Capitol Drive. President Johnson showed another one today, and I had some conversations with that resident over the weekend as well. And there does seem to be an interest in being consistent and continuing it through. I shared with committee my personal sense that if we're doing this to increase safety north, why don't we try to do the entire stretch of Lake Drive all the way down to Edgewood? We asked staff about what would be reasonable for additional public outreach. You know, the recommendation didn't come from Ped and Bike Safety to do the entire stretch because the public outreach, the communication plan is focused only on, it said we're only going to reconfigure those blocks north of Capitol Drive. So the question to staff was, what would be a reasonable amount of time to undertake a communication plan similar to the one that you just completed for the blocks south of Capitol Drive? Trustee Rosick also added G. You know, this is such and feel free to jump in if I'm not representing your comments correctly. But it probably reaching out to more than just the people within 2 blocks of Lake Drive it makes sense. This is a road that very nearly everyone uses, or let's just say most people in the village probably use Lake Drive one way or another. So communications regarding Lake Drive, can we do more on the south side? Tyler mentioned you know, that the communication wasn't just a letter. We had some garbage cart flyers, the manager's memo, Facebook posts, personal communiques, certainly the Ped and Bike Safety and all the bicyclists in the village. And I think that's where some of the communications we got in emails were bicyclists that were south of Capitol Drive. So we talked about, can we proceed with the recommendation that's before us from the Ped and Bike Safety Committee to proceed with preparing the bid documents for Lake Drive with incorporating the recommendation from Ped and Bike Safety Committee. And we talked about a couple of additions to that. One was not to go with to direct staff to have additional consideration and study and evaluation about which of the intersections to have pedestrian crosswalks marked. Certainly, likely, I would imagine not all of them need to be, and that warrants some further evaluation. Not stripe ladder crosswalks at areas with pedestrian ramps that don't have stripe crosswalks, but to do some further study to establish which should. As well, to direct staff to develop and implement a communication plan similar to the communication plan that was utilized for the north of Capitol Drive. But being more robust to incorporate more communications with more people in the interest of rolling out the reconfiguration for the entire stretch. Lastly, the third addition to the recommendation, the recommended motion that's in the package, was that that staff also, in addition to rolling out the communication plan, communicate and interface and engage with the DOT, with the City of Milwaukee, and with the Ped and Bike Safety Committee, because heretofore the discussions with all of those, DOT, City of Milwaukee, Ped and Bike Safety, and whatever outside experts, because all of that communication heretofore was focused on northbound. So Before I make a motion, I want to make sure I capture all that correctly.
I think you did, there's a couple language points I just wanted to clarify. The communication plan is similar to Lake Drive north of Capitol. I don't know that we said similar. They're gonna bring back an outline and then we can modify it. I have big concerns over, I had stated concerns in the committee just that we only touch 2 blocks north, 2 blocks off of North Lake. And even if we weren't considering south, I think the whole residents along the entire arterial in the future could be notified. So moving forward, we might make that adjustment, or I propose it, we'll see how the board goes. Something about rolling out, before we roll out this plan to, do this on the south, I just want to clarify that it's not giving approval. I was the one person to state that I'm not in favor or against the south end, doing a similar thing on the south end of Lake Drive. I don't have enough facts in front of me, and I don't know about funding, if we're going to lose funding. I don't know about the reconfiguration of the lanes. I don't know about the public and what the public outreach. So just to clarify that this isn't an endorsement of doing it necessarily. It's an endorsement of it was a recommendation, and let's move forward with studying it. And there was no time frame that was associated with that. And then the last thing that I did ask for, but I don't see it made it into the motion, which is okay, was I do feel like we needed an expanded traffic study. This traffic study that we got, I checked on the web, the data was from 2010. I really feel like the traffic count should be updated. I also felt that we needed to do some additional analysis of the impacts to the neighborhood of diversion of traffic if we're going to do it on the south side, just because we are doing a lot on our arterials this year, and I would appreciate a little more data on that segment. I think that was it.
Now, you mentioned a motion. There was no motion.
I did not make a motion. I want to make
I
sure.
have no motion.
Right, I want to make sure before I made the motion
Sorry,
that
the explanation.
that I encompassed everything. What?
Well, I have a suggestion.
Okay,
If you were,
let's hear it.
that someone in this group may desire to move forward with the pedestrian and bike safety committee's recommendation with the addition of requesting staff to bring back a robust and expanded communication plan at the beginning of February for the village board's approval that includes exploring the option to reduce the amount of traffic lanes south of Capitol Drive from 4 to 2 lanes, which seeks input from the public, or pedestrian and bike safety committee, public, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and the city of Milwaukee, and any outside experts to conclude the paving at the time that Lake Drive is due to be resurfaced in 2018.
So that takes care of the timing too.
And,
Did it?
So it would be to have this communication plan done, you can clarify it, but with the efforts to have it, have whatever improvements would be deemed necessary implemented with the resurfacing in 2018.
That's the timing.
If that's the desire.
and that the staff would evaluate the pedestrian crossings.
Yeah, and the only reason why I didn't suggest to put that in there is because that was a part of the bike and ped recommendations and the memo that came out from them. So I guess we had assumed that we're doing that already for the same reasons why you want that to be done.
Can I just suggest for a motion, because it's getting to be such a long and complicated motion, could we have entertain a motion just about the north and the ped bike safety recommendation, the process that we've gone through to date with the original ped bike safety recommendation, with the original outreach that we've done? Can we just make a motion and talk about that and then maybe do a second?
Sure. I move to authorize staff to work with the engineer and proceed with preparing the bid documents for 2018 Lake Drive resurfacing project, incorporating the pedestrian and bike safety committee recommendations.
I'll second.
And we'll take
The
the
second, they have that second bullet in the recommendation.
Freddie, could you make a modify that to crosswalks? Because they recommended at every, I'm just, Tyler.
And the recommendation from bike they noted that, staff recommends working with the engineer.
I slipped that in there. It's not Pen and Bike's recommendation.
Oh.
I slipped that in saying, staff recommends working with the engineer on confirming the final location.
Okay.
So
I apologize.
yeah, so that's, I try to be more concise and it made it more confusing, so that's my apology.
Okay.
And by saying yes to that, I think my original question was, is that directing them to do anything on the south side?
Good.
I was just gonna, okay, I was just gonna offer to amend the motion to say instead of crosswalks at every pedestrian ramp, that is dependent by safety recommendation, I'll amend the motion to direct staff to work with the engineer to identify a reasonable number
Yeah.
of pedestrian crossings. Okay.
Second. I have a question though. When I asked in public safety, by voting yes to that, does that mean I'm giving the nod to moving forward with studying, like, yes, we want to do the south side, the
No,
south end?
there's nothing to do with the south.
So
But the recommendation, the Penn and Bike Safety recommendation does address it, and we're adopting
are
their,
we removing the second bullet from the revised?
Yes.
version? So that's not, we're going to deal with that in the next
oh,
motion.
you're moving it, oh, okay.
Well, can we hear the motion? What was the motion?
I don't know if there was even a second to that motion.
I
To the amendment, yes.
But was there?
Was there a second to the original motion?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, it was, Zovic and amended to the original, and then amended to the amendment with Rosen.
And but it seems like we also need to amend to take out the second bullet.
We just withdraw and redo? Sure.
That would be simpler, and I would encourage you to, no, just in all seriousness, I would encourage you to discuss the matter a bit
understand it better.
before you, and I know that everyone wants to kind of move forward, but this process becomes extremely confusing
Yep.
in the process of doing minutes. So if we could have those withdrawn and just.
Withdraw.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to move the recommendation of the Pen and Bike Safety Committee dated January 17th, with the exception of the recommendation to work with the city of Milwaukee on a lane reduction proposal for the southern stretch of Lake Drive, and with the amendment that regarding crosswalks, that staff will work with the engineer to identify a reasonable number of crosswalks, pedestrian crosswalks.
Second.
Was the second?
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I move to direct staff to develop and bring back to the board a communication plan for reconfiguring lanes on Lake Drive south of Capitol Drive. The communication plan to include not only residents, but engaging and interfacing with the Department of Transportation, the City of Milwaukee, the Bike and Ped Safety Committee, and other professionals as needed.
And before someone gives a second, then we have to amend it potentially. You're okay with leaving out doing additional studies on traffic diversion? And do you want any other, or updating the traffic?
Simply saying we should develop a communication plan to study and, yes.
For what?
I am with that.
Now, when
Yeah, you-
the village manager was giving a recommendation on this, she also included with the thought that it would be moving toward actually doing the work in 2018, south of Capitol. I didn't mention anything there.
Yeah, and I don't know if
I want to
that-
be real clear on that, if that's what you want to do.
Because that would bring clarity and that would help the end date of when you're looking at some determinations to be made.
My motion stands and adding on with the understanding, with the interest in completing the communications and studying for implementation of community.
Second.
Discussion?
By when in 2018?
But in 2018.
In 2018. And by, with the goal of completing the study meeting, with the goal of completing resurfacing and markings in 2018?
Well, we've already acted on this is not resurfacing, we've already
Oh, right.
acted on the resurfacing, this is only with striping.
Okay, markings.
Just completing.
Thank you, you're right.
I'd like to figure this here. Before I
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna take a stab at it.
yeah.